Hello and welcome to the 38th episode of When I Was Your Age, a podcast celebrating the careers, callings, and creativity of some friends of mine. I'm your host, Roland Parker, and as always, it is a joy, a pleasure, and a treat to have you here. Today's guest is modern day Hemingway and cowboy Chuck Dye. Really excited to talk with him about the work that he does with exotic animals and ranches and all things out on the range there. Before we bring him into the stream, housekeeping as always, make sure that you follow us on Instagram at WIWYA pod. And thank you guys so much for the support. We are at 1,469 followers, which is always great to see the support each week. It's cool to see that number just creeping on up there. If you found your way here for the first time, you can give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. And if you've been with us before, welcome back, of course. Make yourself at home. And you can watch episodes on YouTube if that's a little more your speed also. You can find links to all those places in the link tree in the Instagram bio. Without further ado, let's bring Chuck into the stream.
Hey,
Chuck, how's it going with you, man?
going well. How are you?
Dude, it's so good to see you. It's kind of a long day. Nothing too bad, but much better now to see your shining face.
Oh, please, you flatter me.
So I understand it was your anniversary yesterday, yeah?
It was, yeah.
That's
Big,
awesome,
big
man.
1 year.
That's congratulations, man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
Well, it's anything special that you guys did for the big 1-0?
Nah, man, we just hung out at home, drank some wine, ate some steaks. The American dream.
Nice. That's the life right there. We love to see it. Well, if you guys aren't already, make sure that you follow Chuck on Instagram. We've got the @ up there in the stream. We'll have it in the show notes as well, so you can keep up with his goings on and everything like that. So tell me about your Instagram handle. Did you ever have anything that was different from this current one?
I don't think so. But in typical Chuck fashion, I had to put the one in there. I'm a one of a kind guy, so I had to just go ahead and claim it, let everyone know that I was the first.
Nice. I love it. No Chuck Dye 2 in there. I feel that. That's good. So I've got some get to know you questions. I kind of like to ask everybody, get some good feedback on that. So we'll start off. Where are you from, and where do you currently live?
So I'm originally from Burnham, Alabama, same place you are, and I now live in Bandera, Texas, which is about 45 minutes to an hour outside of San Antonio.
Okay, very cool. Love that. And we'll maybe we'll paint a bigger picture of how you got out to Bandera. But love that, man. How's the Texas life out there?
Oh, man, it's going pretty great, going pretty well. It's a little hot. We lost a little humidity compared to the southeast, but we're already in full Texas summer. So
Yeah, it's I bet it's pretty brutal at the moment. Big theme of the podcast for us. What do you do?
So currently, I am the senior ranch and wildlife consultant for Wildlife Ranch Solutions, but I'm essentially acting as the COO of sorts.
Nice, very cool. It's and we'll get much deeper into that as we go. But
Yeah.
I love that, man. I love seeing what's on your page and all that. Seeing all the critters that you work with. And it's a title of the podcast is When I Was Your Age. So how old are you?
I am 27. I have
Nice.
difficulty sometimes with that. My wife tells me that I'm always consistently 1 year older in my head than I actually am.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been telling people I'm 28 for the past few months, I guess, and I'm not.
Nice. My mom tried to give me 1 extra year to here recently. We were talking about like birthdays and stuff, and she's like, "Oh, you're gonna be blah blah blah."
Whatever.
And
Yeah.
and I was like, I think you gave me too much there. I got more life to live.
I got a little more to experience.
It's a little more in the tank. Love that. What piece of media are you currently enjoying? So book, podcast, music, TV show. Well, what is that to you at the moment?
Man, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but I do get into some shows. So I'm pretty excited about this House of the Dragon season
Mm,
2 coming up.
yeah,
I'm pretty pumped about that. I think it comes out this weekend. And then I love a good audiobook.
yeah,
So I drive a lot for work, and so I go through books just like wildfire. And I forget what listen to a book. Let me look it up here. It's really quite good.
yeah.
Um,
Do you tend to go the fiction route or like self
it's
improvement
usually
or like?
nonfiction,
Okay,
typically, just whatever kind of catches my eye. So right now I'm listening to Outlaw Platoon. It's about a battalion in Afghanistan and kind of from a first person perspective.
nice.
It's really pretty interesting.
Nice. That's cool. Love it, man. Yeah, I'm big into the audiobooks as of late. Been working through the Red Rising series, so I just kind of got to the finish of that.
Okay.
But I'm also amped for House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
I've been going back through the podcast episodes where they do a breakdown of each of the
Yes.
episodes and like getting myself reacquainted with the characters because it's been a little bit. I'm so pumped for it. I'm about halfway through like the season one like recap episodes. Just
Ooh, I
I'm
need to
getting
go do
ready.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That-
I got my wife on the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon about 6 months ago. Now she's even excited. So
oh, there we go.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
family
good.
affair.
Yeah, for sure. That's gonna be tough when now that she's like caught up and everything. She's gonna wait weekend to every
She
week for an episode.
But see, she didn't have to do that before,
Yeah.
so she didn't have to do the 2 year wait
Hmm.
for new seasons of it. So it's okay.
Yeah.
She'll learn
Yeah.
the
That's
passage.
tough. I lucked out in that like I had waited until basically like the last season was coming out, maybe season 6 or 7
Yeah.
before I like really like dove into it. So I had like so much runway to build up before I had to wait very little for episodes to come out, but that's good.
Yeah.
What is something you'd consider a luxurious necessity? Um, so if I kind of think of something that's integrated into your routine or just generally makes your life a little bit better, but you wouldn't skimp on the quality of.
Oof. Man, it's gonna have to either be good coffee or good
Mm,
bourbon.
yep.
Those are my go tos, and I love them.
Nice. I feel that is often what I go to when I'm trying to like give an example for people, kind of get the wheels turning. Is I'm like, for me, it's a nice cup of coffee. Uh, I don't want to drink Nescafe.
No,
It's much more important to me that it's at least a basic level of quality. Yeah, so I can appreciate that. Any particular way of enjoying the coffee?
man, gotta have my hazelnut creamer.
Mm,
So
nice.
it's something that I grew up with my mom. That's what she drank, and so it was always in the fridge. I don't know. It's just got that nostalgic flavor, and I just love it.
Love it, man. That's awesome. Do you have any bits that you're doing? So like inside jokes with yourself or with your spouse, maybe like running jokes even or phrases that you kind of turn to a lot.
I don't think I necessarily do, but I feel like my wife and those around me use me as that because I
Mm.
say, and you probably remember this. I say some pretty off the wall kind of stuff, and I don't really always realize it.
Sure.
I feel like I'm more of the joke myself
Yeah.
than I
You,
have a joke.
you're the bit that everyone else is returning to.
Yeah.
Love it. That's great. Um, all right. So this question here, I love getting to ask because we get to compile all the answers into a playlist, and kind of get a hodgepodge of answers here. So we've got a whole bunch of them all together. But given the opportunity to replace the national anthem with any song on your music app and your Spotify, what would that be? And tell me a little bit about that.
Ooh. Got beer for my horses.
Yeah,
It's a classic. Again, I'm just a classic guy, I guess. But
sure.
it's got that American spirit that's just I'm gonna put a boot in your ass.
Hmm.
You step across that line. You gotta do right. I don't know. I just think it embodies embodies America.
Sure. That's love it. And that's a Toby Keith original,
Yeah.
is it not? Okay. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, R.I.P.
R.I.P. in peace.
R.I.P. in peace. And so we'll make sure that we get that added to the playlist, and you guys can hear Chuck's answer as well as everybody else who's been on the show. You can find them all in one place. And so go to the link tree and then Instagram bio, and you can go to the Spotify playlist there. Last question that I've got for you is, how do we know each other?
So we grew up together, going to church at Covenant Presbyterian. We're there in Homewood, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both started, and I don't know, in rural small age. I don't even know. And
mm-hmm.
obviously we graduated at the same time, and so we just kind of grew up together.
Yeah.
Saw each other at our best and worst, at our adolescent ages.
That's for sure, man. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I loved having all those memories of like being in the same small group of just like those guys like in the same grade, plus or minus a few. So it's a good time. Love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, kind of in keeping with our pace here, let's dive into your story a little bit. So how far back could you draw like the line from where you are currently to like when it first like started? Like what set you on the path?
I don't know. I guess I feel like I've kind of always known the general direction that I want to go in, for my career. Originally, I think it started off as many young guys or young people do. So I want to be a zookeeper. Animals, dinosaurs, super cool. So that I went down that line for a while until, I don't know, a little older, and my dad was like, "You're never gonna make any money." I was like, "Well, money is cool. It pays for food."
Yeah.
So I kind of started refining that through, I guess, junior high and high school, and wasn't real sure until my senior year. I had some pretty big influences in my life, different managers, biologists, people I didn't interact with on the weekends, who kind of, directed me, but wasn't real sure, but knew I wanted to go somewhere in the environmental field, wildlife field, and so proceeded to go to Mississippi State, who has one of the top forestry schools in the nation. Go Bulldogs! And just fell in love with it. It was truly a blessing to know from day one exactly where I wanted to go, at least the direction. And so, yeah, I'd probably say maybe kindergarten.
Wow, love that. That it's cool to have that. I won't say set in stone, because it probably developed and changed as you grew. But to know for so long on some level that that's what you wanted to do, that's an amazing thing. So, tell me a little bit about your current role. What the day-to-day function responsibilities are for that.
Yeah. So, Wildlife Ranch Solutions, we are kind of the premier management service for breeders of exotic hoofstock. So species like different species of giraffes, greater kudu, Cape buffalo. Yeah, it's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
Yeah, like we see on Nat Geo is what I deal with, but I am involved in breeding. So I help private and public entities basically refine their practices and become more successful with overall care, breeding success, genetics, that kind of just a lot really there. Kind of like drinking out of a fire hose to talk about it. But yeah, but I'm the senior consultant, but in reality, I'm the COO. The company is just small enough that we don't have a established C-suite
Sure.
at this time. But I oversee all the field operations. So I manage lower level consultants. I manage our marketing. I sometimes look over the bookkeeping. Just kind of man of many trades. Just try to keep the machine well oiled and running.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like a good bit of your work is, the consulting piece, working with different breeders or people who own ranches who are just starting out in this endeavor with exotic animals. So tell me what that's like working with people maybe of varying levels of exposure to some of these animals.
Yeah, so all in all, I deal with a lot of really, really top-notch people. This is an industry where it's got a lot of stigmas around it. Most of the time when I people ask what I do, I give some just kind of very vague answer because I don't want to really talk about it. Because it always goes to, well, you're in hunting. So I'm not involved in hunting whatsoever. No, none of the animals I work with or on my client ranches or those are ever consumed in a way. I mean, shot or killed,
Mhm.
except for by the occasional coyote. But so they're purely investments. So these animals are by and large just they're pets. They're not
Mhm.
pets because they're still very much wild animals, but we look after them, we care for them the same way you would care after your dog. You don't want anything. You only want the best for your dog. We only want the best for these animals as well. So that's kind of my job is constantly refining practices and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it seems like there's a lot, like it's the intersection of a lot of different responsibilities and functions. Like I was looking on the page, and but it seems like there'd even be like a construction component of
Yeah,
like, bu- you know, husbandry buildings or shelters or just different
absolutely.
things like that. So what what's maybe the most like the biggest learning curve that you had to face? Like, what was the hardest thing for you to get a hold of when you were learning your responsibilities?
For me, it was all interpersonal.
Mm,
So both dealing with like my employees, kind of like working, becoming a better leader. But you know, I don't really love the word boss. I use it, but like I try to be a little bit more than I try to be more helpful than that. But so that's been a big learning curve, and then also and you probably interact with or come in contact with this as well, but interacting with your elders and people who are very successful in whatever their career might be. That's at first that was very intimidating.
mhm,
Then I had to realize and teach myself that they're paying me for my expertise, for my knowledge. It's they see me as an equal, not as
mm,
someone just as a child, and I need to view them in that same way, that they're an equal and not my superior.
mhm. Yeah, so that would be intimidating. I feel like is they've got maybe a lot of practical experience. Maybe they've had their land and their property for generations even, and then you're being like, well, like here's something that I that I do to
Yeah,
tweak it like that. I feel like that would be really hard for me.
yeah, and a lot of my clients are actually like doctors, lawyers, stuff like that, and so people in those fields too are not used to being the least intelligent in the room, or the least informed is a better way of putting that. Least
Mm,
informed in the room, and so sometimes there comes an ego with that. But by and large, it's really good natured people, and they're when they realize that you do know what you're talking about and that you are on their team, you're not trying to surprise them or show them up. It's really a pretty cool thing watching that
uh,
relationship develop.
yeah, absolutely. Well, so you mentioned that it's primarily hoof animals, and
Yeah.
um, you mentioned giraffes, which is really cool. But is there any any particular animal or kind of animal that you're kind of drawn to working with? That's a in the work setting.
Yeah, so I work a lot with Kenyan mountain bongo. They're
Okay.
critically endangered
I,
rainforest antelope. They're absolutely drop dead gorgeous, and they live on one mountain range in Kenya, about above 14,000 feet. And they believe there's 100 left of them in the wild. And in my management alone, we have over 100. So
wow.
we're rewilding those as well. Slowly. It's slowly being done. It takes many, many years. to get to that point, but we're working on that. We've had success in the past. And then my other favorite is a Sitatunga. So that's a really wild species. It's basically a swamp antelope.
Wow.
Yeah, they like to when they get scared, they run deep into the swamp, and all you'll see is just their little nose sticking out, and they'll sit there for hours waiting for you to leave. They're really very cool species, but both of those two species also become very gentle and are almost like big fuzzy deer that you can kind of look at and feed
Wow.
apples, and it's on occasion.
Yeah.
It's really pretty cool.
Nice. That's such a cool thing to get to work with, like a wide variety of different animals. But to see the little nuances and the, it, I, I would assume like in environment, and range and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. That's amazing. Um, so to tell me about giraffes, because like my exposure is really just like Birmingham Zoo. That's about
Yeah.
all I've kind of done. Have you been like up and close like with them? Like that seems like such a unique experience. Not a lot of people would have something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm in close contact with giraffes quite often, actually. Most
Wow.
giraffes in the U.S. Essentially big puppies. They'll let you scratch their face. You feed them lettuce. My boss actually owns one. She is the Wildlife Ranch Solutions giraffe. Her name is Petals.
Petals.
But
That's sweet.
she will. If we walk up and you call her name, she'll come trotting across her pasture to you, and she'll put her head all the way down. I've had my nieces that are 2 and 3 years old, 4 years old. She'll put her head all the way down next to them, and her head's as big as they are, and she lets them scratch her and pet on her, and they're really very very cool. There's not a whole lot of them around, so it's pretty special when you do get to work with them. I get to work with babies a bunch,
Mm.
and that usually happens when my wife's in an important meeting of her own. I'll send her a picture of me basically getting kissed by a 2-day-old giraffe calf or something like that, and that's always really fun.
Yeah. Amazing. Um, Well, you're working with animals from all different kinds of environments. So I imagine that kind of translates to different kind of properties and ranches that you're working with. And you mentioned that you traveled a lot for work. So where are all these places that you're heading to? Are you primarily in Texas, or do you spend a lot of time outside of the state as well?
So we're primarily based in Texas because this is kind of epicenter of the private industry, but we work with public entities such as zoos, safari parks, stuff like that. So, but nationwide. So I've been everywhere from like I go to Arkansas on occasion. We've got guys that go to California, Arizona, Massachusetts, kind of everywhere.
Wow,
Most most larger places we go, we
nice.
talk to them.
That's awesome. Any do you have anywhere that kind of sticks out as the coolest property or place that you've been to? Um, anything that kind of sticks out in that way?
I have a client that owns a little less than 400,000 acres in Van Horn, Texas, which is far west. That's over there by El Paso,
Okay.
and that's super. It's a really cool property, mainly because it is so different than where we grew up.
Hmm.
You know, it's wild. You can stand on your hat and watch your dog run away for a week. It's so flat out there, and it's just like almost a moonscape. But if you know where to look, it's really a thriving ecosystem as well. It's just super super cool. You just feel like you're in a whole different country.
Yeah. You mentioned that a lot of these places feel so much different from where we grew up.
Hmm.
Was that something that you were hoping to seek out um, when you were looking at getting into this kind of work? Is like, I want to seek something that is very different from what I'm used to seeing, like temperate deciduous rainforest versus like I'm gonna get out there in the plains. Like what? Tell me about that.
So yes and no. I knew I wanted to go. Where I did not know, but so when I left, I knew as soon as I graduated high school, I mean, the next morning I left and I went to Arkansas, and it's just been the work, and then it's just been a steady trot west since then. I didn't really have any specific goals, like I want to do this, but I love to see new country. Um, and I've just kind of always gone where the opportunities are, and it just so happened that I ended up in the great state of Texas.
Nice, love it, man. All right, so let's connect the dots then from Birmingham, Alabama to and say the city again for in Texas.
Bandera.
Bandera. All right, so let's connect the dots from Birmingham to Bandera. How did you end up out there?
Yeah, so left obviously graduate high school, left Birmingham immediately, and went to move to Mississippi. Starkville, Mississippi. Went to Mississippi State. Was there for off and on. Was there for 5 years. You know, I had to kind of get my stuff together my first year, but that's okay. Yeah, they only asked the best to come back for an extra year.
That's right.
So yeah, so but obviously our senior year, or I guess my 5th year, COVID was in effect, and so my senior's last semester got cut short by 4 months, 3 months, something like that. And I'd already accepted a job as an assistant ranch manager in Colorado. So I left early and went and started a job at Hanover, Colorado, which is south of Colorado Springs. And I was helping manage the ranch I was on was a little over 90,000 acres, but we were within a collective where I was really helping manage a little less than 500. But that was a traditional cow-calf ranch, raising registered foundation beef master cattle. And then that was on the high desert, but being from Alabama, I don't like the cold. I don't like the snow. And I do love humidity. So Colorado is not the place for me. The high desert we had snow in July and August. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's tough.
There was 0% humidity, so I didn't know when I was hot. Didn't know when I just knew I was very, very cold when it was cold. So I said, okay. I did that for a little over a year. I said, okay, I'm ready to move south. Do something a little different. So I moved south to Strawn, Texas, which is about an hour and a half west of Fort Worth. And I was the ranch manager of an exotic game ranch. My first foray into it. And long story short, didn't love it at that place. For different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't great, but there was a silver lining there. Was able to meet my now wife, Macy. She was working in Fort Worth, and I needed to get out of my small town, so I'd go hang out with her, go get dinner. But when I left my job in Strawn, I was kind of looking around, and I went to the Dallas Safari Club Expo, which happened to be in Dallas, and was just walking around, just handing out my resume, say, here's what I can do for you, or I'd like to work for you. And then I passed by our parent company's booth with my boss was standing there, and he had this little ragtag, I can call it that now, it was terrible, flyer, just talking about land consultation. And I knew for years that that's where I wanted to go. My goal was I wanted to be, either own my own consultation firm or be high up in one by my 30th birthday. That was just my career goal. And so I looked up, didn't know who was who, and said, want to talk to someone about this. And happened to be my now boss. And he was like, well, what do you want to talk about? He doesn't know who I am. I said, well, here's who I am. Here's what I can do to help you to improve this. And basically just did a good old-fashioned sales pitch, politely telling him that he can do better. And because he had just started the company 3 months prior, and so he was the only employee. And but I sold myself, and about a week later he called me, and 2 weeks later, something like that, he called me and said, when can you start? And said tomorrow, basically. But then So left Strawn, Fort Worth area and moved down to San Antonio. And I've been here for 3 years now, 4 years now. Yeah, 3 years now.
Nice. Love it, man. Thanks for kind of breaking down the journey there. I
Winding
think it's
road,
always,
man.
yeah, it's that's good to see you too. And you mentioned the piece of being somewhere that didn't really fit what you wanted. I've always kind of been of the mind it's just as important to work in places that you know that you don't like, because you figure out like this is not for me,
You
and
learn so
you,
much.
yeah.
I learned more about man management from how not to do it
Hmm.
in that, over that period than I would have never learned some of that stuff if I had been where I am now. You
Yeah.
know, it's made me a better leader and honestly just a better man. Just
Nice.
how to treat people.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's unfortunate that that's the way that you had to experience it, but still better, better for you in the long run. That's good. Um, well, let's say that I have a ranch and I'm looking to procure your services. What are the things that I'm gonna need to know if I'm just sort of um, the getting into these exotic animals, or your other services? What does that look like?
Yeah. So we'll start saying you're interested. Say you own 100 acres. We can work with any size acreage, but so you're like, well, look, I'm interested in this. I've heard about it. You reach out to me and you say, what is this? I'll go through and kind of gauge your interest. What are you interested in? Are you interested in the breeding? Are you interested because it's just cool and you want to flex on your homeboys? Are you just a tire kicker or what?
Yeah, for me
Once
it's the
I
flexing. Yeah, I'm really
yeah,
trying
well,
to
look,
I'm trying to
I,
show out.
I tell people they're like, well, some people they're like, well, why do I do this? I don't need a giraffe, but I want one. It's like, what do you do with them? It's like, do you have a giraffe? No. Yeah, that's why. That's why people own these. Some of this stuff. That's what it boils down to. Is I have it, you don't.
Hmm.
Which thankfully has led to the conservation of a lot of species. Just people wanted to have something that you don't. But we would, once we establish that you are interested in actually pursuing this, and then and you like the way I talk, I say, okay, let's set up a meeting. I come out to your property, we drive around it. I'll talk to you about your goals, both short, medium, and long term. What do you want to see out of your property? What's your budget? What do you want to spend? Is there a financial component here that we want to, address? Because at the end of the day, these animals they're classified as livestock by the IRS. So, it's called exotic wildlife, but they're exotic livestock. So you're
Hmm.
raising these animals in the same way you would raise cows. Except you're not raising them for beef, you're raising them for the tax incentives. So, because you can deduct these from your taxes in the year of the purchase and a whole bunch of good stuff there that is not fun to listen to. But we would go through all that. I say, okay, we would kind of establish a plan. Well, here's what I can do for you. Whether that's just off the cuff consultations, on a basically on an hourly basis, or if that's writing a business plan for you. That's establishing your ranch is not a hobby, but as an actual profit or just functioning business, which is very important in the eyes of the IRS, or just kind of whatever, or a monthly service. So that's where we kind of go from top to bottom on your ranch, looking at everything from your animal health to all the above ground infrastructure. This kind of fencing, shelters, feed, water, parasite health, all that kind of stuff. And kind of just and that culminates in a report that you get. And from there it's kind of just help you make better decisions, try to avoid a lot of those pitfalls that people no matter what industry you're in, you're gonna find when you first start.
Yeah.
Basically it's I'm basically helping startups not fail.
Yeah. You're building the rubric for them, like, hey, like
Absolutely.
here are some things that I anticipate that you guys would be struggling with, just like you're gonna run I'm looking out at this property over here, and the way this runoff is happening, you're probably gonna encounter these kinds of issues, and all that
Absolutely.
kind of
Or
stuff.
like, or you got a whole bunch of noxious weeds, stuff that's poisonous. Like, hey, let's remove those prior to anything going on. Stuff like that. Yeah, it's this a lot of the small details add up to a lot. Yeah.
Hmm. Do you see people kind of getting in way over their head, like with some of these investments or animals? Like I feel I I I kind of would think yes, just because
Yeah.
it's going to happen in any environment, any kind of like work style or anything like that. But what is that like for you?
So that happens every day, 10 times a day. You know, I'm not a talk on the phone guy, but that's all I do during my
Mm,
days. And every new ranch I go on, that's what it is. It's we come to the find out the people who buy these animals a lot of times it's like, well, I'm good at selling insurance. I'm good at arguing in a courtroom. I'm good at doing whatever in the lab. It doesn't matter. And they're like, well, because I'm so smart, I can do this. It's just it's a stupid animal. There's no, I can just as long as they have green out there and water,
yeah.
they're happy. But they don't realize, well, some of those animals don't like each other. They
Mm,
don't work. They don't occur naturally together, or they're just mean. So
yeah.
there are animals that are just they're the species like Cape Buffalo are just mean. They can't just be out there. And so you have people come up all the time saying, well, this happened, or I've lost all these animals, or whatever it may be, and well, I've lost, say, however much money. And it's like, well, I don't understand why this happens. Well, what were you feeding it? That's my first question. What are you feeding them? Well, corn. Corn's nutritionally barren. So like it's these animals can't. It's like feeding your child cotton candy. They love it. It tastes good, but they can't go run a marathon on it.
Yeah.
They can't go work on it. So it happens all the time, which is sad to see. But people, with my help, with our help, we try, or at least just try to steer them in a better direction. End of the day, we just want the animal to be happy and healthy, and whether that means you're going to end up paying us money or not, we're gonna say, hey, stop eating corn. Just feed them some of this or that. Just try to help them out a little bit and get them started. It happens all the time.
Yeah. No, that's good. It seems like for me, like I feel like I have an understanding that these things would be much more delicate, and then just like, oh, I could like stick like these animals in my backyard.
Yeah,
And like just because they're on the same latitude, like doesn't mean that it's going to transfer from, one continent to the next very well. Like there's different weather patterns, you got invasive species, all this kind of stuff.
we do
But
everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't surprise me that people run into those issues all the time. They're like, oh, I was feeding it corn.
yeah. And then there's always these people out there too that who sell them these animals. That they don't tell you anything. It's just kind of like
Mm,
it's like, yep, they drop them off. That's not what we do, but they drop them off, and it's like, well, yeah, this looks great, and then they take that check and they run. It's like, well, this animal that lives in the rainforest doesn't need to be out there in a soybean field. Just make easy observations or comparisons there. It's crazy, but it happens.
yeah, that's that's wild. So you mentioned some of the reasons of why someone would get into owning some of these animals. Tell me about um, what you guys tend to experience when people are looking to get into it for the first time, or just like generate better business practices. Because it seems like to me it's very much like an investment kind of thing, being able to sell them after they've matured or when they reach like an optimal age. But
Yeah.
are there anybody with like, altruistic environmental practices kind of in mind, or like byproduct even? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's exactly it. There's two different kinds of people that we work with, at least in the private sector, and that's the investment minded people who are would rather give their money back to themselves, earn money with or instead of giving it back to Uncle Sam. So these animals are investments. They are classified as livestock by the IRS, like I said earlier. So, just to use general numbers. So say a kudu females are almost always more valuable because you only need one male to produce many babies. You need many females to produce many babies. So say a kudu female is $40,000. Okay, that's great. But you can now write off $40,000 against your taxes, or 63%. But yeah, but it helps you lower your tax burden. So say you have, you're going to have to pay $100,000 worth of taxes to the IRS. Well, through this, we can actually have them pay you money.
Mm-hmm.
And then because every year people are buying, I'm going to buy a new truck, I'm going to buy a tractor. I've got to do something. That's where I'm just going to buy stuff for my ranch, and that's going to whatever. They don't realize, no. This is a business. You're buying that tractor you buy. It requires someone to drive it. It requires an oil change, it requires diesel, all that, and it does not produce baby tractors.
Yeah.
Versus you buy a kudu, or a kudu cow, and yeah, you have to feed her. You do have to feed her. Well, you should, and so we always recommend supplemental feeding.
If you're doing things well, then you should probably feed the animals that you have.
Yeah, like you should give them that extra, make sure they have everything they need. But that tractor, quote unquote, she's producing baby tractors. And then after you raise those animals to 12 months of age, the offspring, and then you can sell those, and those are then taxed at long-term capital gains, which is a little less than 20%, which is much, much lower than both your income tax or short-term capital gains. So if you buy a stock, it goes way up like GameStop has, and then you sell it, you're paying short-term capital gains, and that's a much, much higher tax rate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's essentially what it is. You're writing your taxes off for this year and many years to come, and then also you're separating income, essentially.
Yeah.
It's then on the other hand, there's the altruistic motive. There are some people out there, many actually, they love the idea of making money. That's great. They want to do that, absolutely, because no one does anything to lose money.
Yeah.
But they're not interested in, say like kudu or probably my favorite animal. But they're not critically endangered or rare. They're not interested in them. They want to raise animals, no matter the price point, that are rare or threatened or extinct in the wild. So those are species like Kenyan mountain bongo, Dama gazelle, they say there's 30 left in the wild. Again, there's zero. Bush meat trade. Scimitar oryx is a big one. That's probably what everyone thinks of when they think of Texas. They think of this big gazelle with kind of red in the front, white animal, big swooping horns. Those were wiped out from their native range, the Sahara Desert, Northern Africa. Those were completely gone. But due to Texas ranchers raising them, there are now scimitar oryx again in Northern Africa.
Wow.
So a lot of people will do that for that reason, and that reason only. Is just to say, look, they may be extinct in the wild, or they may be becoming extinct, but through I have the ability to ensure they're not extinct totally. Which is the same. It's the same thing the zoos are trying to do. Just we're much more effective than they are.
Yeah,
just to be quite blunt.
Well, it seems like from a resource standpoint, because of maybe some of the private elements, and some of these folks, like, because they're not working with unlimited space, and they have to dedicate so much of it to, like, oh, this is the polar bear habitat, and this is the
whatever.
It's like they've got to divvy up so much of their resources and land, versus the if somebody's got 400,000 acres that they can work with, like, yeah, I'll dedicate 100,000 or 200,000 to it's this oryx that I want to help out, like that. It's a completely different game, it feels like.
It's a completely different game, two different games, but it has to be said. I'm not trying to be a downer on. I'm sorry, I keep moving my computer. I'm not trying to be a downer on the people that live in these areas. These animals are endangered. Species like scimitar orcs, scimitar horned orcs. I mean, that's in an incredibly war torn area, and if I were them, I'm going to choose. If it's the decision is between that weird furry thing with long horns running around and feed my kids, I'm going to feed my kids. And so that's the massive issue too. Is we need to do a better job as a world, as a and then as a nation, supporting those people and trying to help them find ways to where they can support these animals naturally,
Mm,
in a way that they don't have to to shoot them or to utilize them consumptively, but to be able to get revenue from them being alive or just whatever it may be.
yeah. Gotcha. So, kind of going back to what you're saying about the tax incentive stuff, it seems like the mechanism for a lot of these folks is that there are tax incentives um, instituted to encourage people to uh, help prevent the extinction, help promote the conservation of some of these animals, and that is the mechanism by which they are saving money or reducing their tax burden. Is
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna do this on my property, and because the government is saying this, that's a good thing. That's how I'll pay hopefully less taxes.
yeah. I mean, they're the same as cows or horses, excuse me, sheep, goats, the whole thing. They're the same as traditional livestock. At least in the eyes of the IRS. I wish I could say that it was favored this way because some of these species are so rare and threatened. It's not. It's because
Mhm.
it's such a lucrative business. In Texas alone, it's about a little over a $5 billion business,
Wow.
year over year. So it's nationwide, and so there's a lot of people out there who are powerful and say, we're going to do this, but you can't tax us at this rate.
Mhm.
What's the difference between one animal and the next? Well, in the eyes of the government, they're not different. But so it's kind of a multifaceted issue there that has really been to the benefit of these animals.
Mhm. Yeah, amazing. Um, well, I'm kind of running out of questions here, just with your eloquence, the way that you're laying out all of the things
Oh,
that you're facing. Um, so tell me about then kind of transitioning with, are you working with the animals directly a little less now because of the consulting component, and like working with the people who own the properties a little more?
yeah. So I work more hands-on. I'm working less hands-on than I was when I was the sole consultant at first. I am a little more administrative now. I get to put out fires, but I'm still very much hands-on. So like today, I was actually doctoring some Arabian orcs. They had some parasite issues, and then one had a small limp. And so I had been speaking with that client because I am somewhat proficient with a dart gun. It's not very non-invasive at the end of the day, but I was able to. Yeah, I don't get hands-on with those animals because they are very much still wild. They just don't want to.
Mhm.
They'll allow me to get within 100 yards of them, not a mile of them,
Yeah.
like they would in Saudi. But I am still very much hands-on, and it's still very much a lot of fun just being able to doctor these animals when they need it, or every now and then when there's a calf on the ground that's not doing too great at birth, I get to love on it a little bit and help it feel better. Or like I said earlier, there's baby giraffes. Which, fun fact, all giraffes, if you want your giraffe to be successful, almost all of them are bottle raised, and
Okay.
that's because they do require hoof trims like horses do, or most do. But then also that's a very, very large animal, and so you don't want them. And they're specialized. They can't be in weather less than if it's in the 50s. They're at risk of getting hypothermia.
Real?
And so you
Oh,
need to be able
wow.
to call them into. You have to have a specialized giraffe barn for them. It's heated and all that. It's USDA type stuff. But so you want them to be very friendly. There's nothing cooler than saying, "Hey, come feed my pet giraffe." So you want them to be very, very people friendly. And so every
Mhm.
now and then I'll get to go out there, and when there's a new baby that comes in or is born, I get to go out there and love on it and scratch its head. And it's already as tall as I am at 6'4". It's it's really, really cool.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Well, something that you touched on was the doctoring and kind of working with these animals in all these different kinds of fields. Something that's occurring to me is all of the different ways and all of the different facets of this job. It seems like there's you're scraping the surface of veterinary function. There's land management there. I'm sure that there's a biology component. There's just like all of these things that are converging. So like tell me about that. Like I'm is there something, is there a piece of this job that like if I were to apply for it, I'd be surprised like, oh, I'd never thought that X was a piece of being a consultant in this field.
Yeah, so we do work. When I say I'm doctoring, I have veterinarians that specialize in these animals, and so I'm following their direction. Um, my practicing kind of veterinary medicine. That's a caveat, but so but yeah, that's really cool. And I'd say most people that I've hired or I've worked with or brought out just to kind of for a day in the life, or they're very surprised with like, hey, let's go on a catch job, where we're gonna move animals from one location to the next. They get to put hands on this stuff, and it's like they've never put hands on. Sometimes some haven't even put hands like on a whitetail before.
Mhm.
It's like their dog is the most exotic animal, and all of a sudden you've got this animal that's just it's you see on Nat Geo. So that's a big, really cool part that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Um, but also, I would say the interaction with people is a big one. You get to meet people from every walk of life. That's really cool. And I think people get very surprised by the scope of this industry. Where
Mhm.
everyone seems to think it's Mr. Moneybags, it's the Monopoly man. He's the only one that owns all these animals, and it's when you get down to and you start interacting with people, you realize no, they're people's. They're just like you and I. Yeah, they some of them have been obviously more successful than others at their ventures, but it's I've got teachers and people who are teachers are in this industry. They're who we all know they don't make enough money. Um, that's really cool. It's just kind of an eye-opening experience of a lot of different cultures as well.
Mm. Amazing. I love that. That's cool. Thank you for laying that out. Well,
Yeah.
that's all the questions that I have for you. But in this podcast, we have a tradition of guests asking the next guest a question here. So I'll ask you a question from our previous guest, and then I'll
Okay.
give you the opportunity to uh, pose one yourself here. But
Yeah.
so previous guest was Sophia Warner, and she does a lot of legislative work with space policy, which is very cool. And she says, "I
Oh,
love space, but it scares me. What is something that maybe scares you about the future?" Great question.
I gotta say that's deep.
Mhm.
Wow, man. Man, to not be political, but the divide,
Sure.
the divide in people. I have my beliefs and you have your beliefs, but I've noticed as I've grown older and I've kind of mellowed on some of the stuff and been strengthened in some others that it seems like there's less and less people willing to have a conversation with you and just talk and realize, hey, we might disagree on this topic or that, but we're really not we're not that different.
Yeah.
I think
We're not
that's
we're
I
not
think that's
that
what
different.
scares me. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what scares me though is that my future children, they're going to grow up in a world where you just don't talk to people.
Mhm.
Like you can't talk to Susie because she's this or she's that. That's nowhere to live. So,
Yeah.
but the question I'm going to ask the next person, because that's
Yeah.
kind of where I was leading. I was like, where do you see the world going? I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, and I don't want to pigeonhole you to going super serious too. If
No.
you've got a good icebreaker question that you love to ask too, then that could be a great direction to go. But yeah, what's on your mind?
Man, ooh, I don't know. I think this is a tough one. I almost want to ask, like, if you could be, just to stay in my animal theme, if you could be any animal anywhere, what would it be and why?
Mm.
You can't just say like, oh, I want to be a dog because I like food. You gotta get like a little deeper there than that.
Okay,
I want to be a dog because I want to run free through the fields. Something like that.
Okay. You've got to add the qualifier of why exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
like
I feel that.
give me something deeper
Yeah.
than surface.
Mm-hmm. What do you have a particular answer that an animal that you feel like you would want to be?
I'd want to be a kudu. Like just walk around. You look all majestic and regal, and everyone just, I don't know, you're just beautiful. And that's what I want to be. I just want to feel like I'm the king of wherever I am.
Nice. I love that. I've always, something about owls has always really resonated with me. It's a little
mysterious.
It's a little mysterious, but a lot of them have like some humor to them. Sometimes I think I don't know if there's any like particular like kind that that I look to. I would say I don't know if I would want to be like a super small owl. I would want to be like kind of bird of prey owl. I would think.
Something you can get something done, but you're not gonna. But you're not like just this big bumbling like massive like an eagle flying through the air.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Nice. Well, great question. I'm excited to ask it to our next guest there.
Chuck, we can hear their response.
Yeah, man. Any parting thoughts before we wrap it up for the episode?
And it's been really cool just being able to kind of reconnect, honestly. When you messaged me a week ago or so, it kind of caught me off guard, I'm not gonna lie. And I was like, what does this guy got to have to say? Like I mean, we haven't spoken in maybe close to 10 years probably. Or may have, I don't know. But that was pretty cool. Pretty exciting, and I'm really glad we got to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's one of the biggest pieces of why I wanted to do this is the reconnection piece, but also honoring like what folks are doing out in their respective fields. And I think I got a really good picture of what it is that you're doing. So it's been great for me as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to conclude episode 38 of When I Was Your Age. Thank you guys for making it this far. If you have, if you have made it to this point, make sure that you drop find an antelope or oryx emoji, and you can drop it on the latest Instagram post. That would be a great way to let us know that you got this far. But it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you guys with us, and we'll catch you in the next one.